Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the second Digital London FP&A Circle. My name is Larissa Melnichuk. I'm Managing Director of FP&A Trends Group and International FP&A Board. Today we have a very interesting subject, digital FP&A, deploying artificial intelligence, machine learning for planning. And we have some interesting case studies which are focused on FP&A, on using automation, artificial intelligence, machine learning for moving to digital FP&A and for improving the decision-making process. Very quickly, let me remind you about the agenda. So we'll start with the first case study from Konica Minolta, and it's about the case of automation, the case of practical experience of this organization, in particular in Eastern Europe and Caucasian region, how they used the power of modern technology. Then we will have a case study from Amazon on particular use of machine learning and how it could be applied in FP&A. After this, we will look at how artificial intelligence will impact the role of FP&A, what is happening now and what is going to happen in the future. Then obviously technology makes it so easy for us. You know, we don't have to be data scientists, and we really can use modern technology to enhance our human intelligence. And of course, conclusions and recommendations and Q&A session. Very briefly, I would like to tell you a few words about FP&A Trends Group. As you know, we travel the world. I opened every single chapter in 27 cities and 16 countries on 4 continents. Not possible to travel. Here in the UK, we have the first day of lockdown, the second one, and that is why we continue to travel digitally. It's amazing that we have representatives of 36 countries today, and we have more than 370 registrations. More than half of you are coming from UK and Ireland, but we have guests from many different countries. Welcome to London FP&A Circle. A quick introduction on the history. So we started more than 4 years ago in London, and the idea was that with FP&A board, we creating the content, we creating the maturity models, and we, through debate and discussion, we come to the ideas, what are the better practices in FP&A. But London FP&A Circle, this is the vehicle for London, for International FP&A Board to share the idea with bigger community. Those of you who've been to our London offices, London meetings, you remember we had so many different discussions. And let me remind you about the previous discussion, the first digital event that we held on the 18th of June. It was about the winning FP&A teams. And today we will be building on that knowledge. So we discussed that the new profession that was created, the new roles that were created with the technology, those are FP&A architect and FP&A data scientist. And obviously today, those people who are presenting today, they're working between those multidisciplines, not only finance, but also IT and data science. Let me introduce to you our fantastic and very international panel. The first one is Igor Panivka. He is Managing Director at Konica Minolta, based in Kyiv, Ukraine, but he's responsible not only for Ukraine, but also Caucasian region as well. Igor is the representative, the finance practitioner, the finance professional who is also a data scientist, and he has qualification in artificial intelligence, machine learning. He can code, and everything what you see today, it was his architecture, it was his process, and it's incredible success. We also have Anton Malmygin, who is based normally in Benelux and Luxembourg, but today Anton is presenting from Spain, where he is on holidays. Lucky Anton. So Anton is head of FP&A and business intelligence and cost out initiatives in Europe, in Amazon. And Anton will share with us his case study on how machine learning can help with better forecasting for the revenue, so real life case study. And then we have Saurabh Jain, who will join us, who is joining us from New York. He is VP Business Performance and Controlling at Siemens Healthcare. And again, another visionary who works multidisciplinary, and he will look at what is coming to FP&A and how we should be ready and prepared. And then we have a representative of our sponsor organization, visionary from a technology point of view, Sasha Alba. Sasha joins us from Germany, and he's a product director and head of FP&A at Unit 4. And Sasha will share with us how technology really can make it easy for FP&A, for this winning formula of combining artificial intelligence and human intelligence. So this is our international board, our international panel. But then, as normal, let me remind you about some household items. So 90 minutes webinar, your participation is very welcome. You will be able to answer 4 polling questions, and it's so easy to do with this system. Just vote, and we will share the results with you. And also we will have an interactive Q&A session as well. Networking is important. That is why if you would like to connect with us through LinkedIn, if we are not connected yet, please do just indicate that you attended this particular webinar. And please take part at the survey at the end of the meeting. Also, before we start, I really would like to say thank you so much to our technology sponsor and partner with company Unit 4. With this company, we collaborate not only in London, but in some other regions around the globe. And this is one of the world's leading provider of powerful corporate performance management solution with rich business intelligence and optimized FP&A functions as well. Thank you so much, Unit 4. And we would like to say thank you so much to our partner, Michael Page, one of the world's leading professional recruitment consultancies. More than 4 years ago, we started this journey with Michael Page. I started FP&A boards in many cities around the globe in their beautiful offices, and they supported us since then. Thank you, Michael Page. Let me start with a very quick introduction and with some definitions, because this is really important. As you remember, we were talking about data scientist and FP&A architect. So those people who are bridges between finance and FP&A and other professional fields. Today we are talking about moving to digital FP&A. So digital FP&A, where we really using the power of computers, the power of technology to help us automate as much as we can. Practically with the push of the button, our business as usual. But we believe that we really shift our attention to value-adding analysis. So to make it as a very, very quick reminder for you, you're all familiar with driver-based planning. And driver-based planning, this is the huge potential, huge trend in FP&A right now. But driver-based planning, it could be done in Excel. It could be done with our human intelligence. And when we implement this with the system, we're really in the best place, in a very good place. But now we are talking not only about driver-based planning, but we are starting to use machine intelligence, predictive, prescriptive analytics. Some companies use machine learning and automation in order for us to understand all of those hidden drivers. It's not possible with our human intelligence to understand those. And of course, combination of both, it's such a powerful thing that we called digital FP&A. But as a formula, I call this articulated intelligence, because this is the power of human intelligence, machine intelligence, and the process is so important. So for us in FP&A, we're really concentrating on human intelligence and process that we created for artificial intelligence to help us. So we are the masters and machines are helping us. Very quick definition. Artificial intelligence enables the machine to think. Very, very simple one. It's a huge, big, very interesting field. And we are not here artificial data scientists in order to go deep into this, just the definitions and how we can use an FP&A. And machine learning is the system that can learn from data through self-improvement and with minimal human supervision. And this is one of those tools that could be so beneficial for FP&A. And today we will look how it will work together with human intelligence and process. So to remind you about the formula. And this formula was adopted from Garry Kasparov's law. I think you all remember this world chess champion. Until year 1997, he was absolutely he was the world champion. Nobody could beat him. And then in year 1997, Blue Deep, IBM computer, actually defeated him. So the computer won. After this, Garry looked at many different formulas, and there are a lot of discussions about this. I adapted this to FP&A because this is such a huge, such a powerful description. Digital FP&A success, it's human intelligence, it's artificial intelligence, and very clever process. So all of those factors are very important. So we have the first speaker, Igor Panivka, Managing Director at Konica Minolta, Ukraine and Caucasia. Igor, you're welcome. Can we see you now? Fantastic.
Hi, Larissa.
Hi, Igor. Hi, Igor. It's so nice to see you at this meeting, and thank you so much for joining us from Kyiv. We know that you're not previously when you presented you were CFO. At the moment you're managing director of your company. Obviously, it's a lot of things happening at the moment with scenario planning and so on. But Igor, let us start from the beginning. When we met some time ago in Kyiv, but also we met at some of the conference in the US, and you traveled to London. Incredible story and incredible example when one person can combine the role of data scientist, FP&A data scientist, IT person, Igor can code as a professional, you see, and also finance person, CFO, and now a manager, the decision maker and influencer. So it's a very rare skill, and that is why it's so interesting to see your vision. How it's all started in your company before you automated and before you practically created the digital FP&A framework in your company.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me here. So I will share with pleasure my experience. And I started in Konica Minolta 10 years ago, and I joined finance department where we had hundreds of spreadsheets for reporting and planning purposes. And our biggest challenge was how to achieve consistency for common business logic applied both for reporting and planning. At that time, managerial reporting preparation took us up to 5 to 7 days, and our management was definitely was not satisfied with this. So we were thinking how to make it quick, reliable, and robust. I had the limit of people to be hired in finance department, so I saw that technology was the only way out to find some kind of solution. As a big fan of spreadsheets, I initially found the way through some spreadsheet solution using numerous combinations of advanced pivot table tools. And as a result, we created special ERP data extraction tools and incrementally combined periodical data into huge gigantic big Excel file where we used magic formulas for generating reports and plans. But one day the IT guys saw my spreadsheet solution and they're quite surprised for applying a complex business logic in such unreliable way. They advised me to learn SQL or SQL querying language and try to use a data modeling approach for achieving all my goals. So I tried and it worked fantastically well, and that was the beginning of my way into technology. I quickly understood that data modeling is a breakthrough approach for all my problems, and I started experimenting the ways how I can automate the most of routine tasks I had. As a result, we built and rolled out real-time, reliable reporting and planning tools in several countries in Eastern Europe, and they save us until now a huge amount of time and money in decision-making process.
I know that it's amazing result. I know that if previously you had hundreds of Excel spreadsheets, now with the push of the button, you can forecast, you can combine your operational data with finance data and so on and so forth, and also to make play scenarios and do strategic decisions. So those are the FP&A prerequisites at the moment. I know that you started from the simple steps, but then over the time you even qualified from one of the American universities with data scientist degree. Yeah. So what else you developed there, Igor? What was the solution?
So the solution, actually, as you can see here, is a combination of IT approaches and business logic. So we build a combination of historical data and planning tools or planning approaches which we used in spreadsheets. So the biggest challenge for us in planning was how to combine operational drivers with financial logic. In order even to compare the plan with the fact, we need to pump and filter huge amounts of historical data, align it with nice operational models used in planning, and then draw some variance analysis and then make conclusions and decisions. That's not easy. Everyone knows that. So building some integration logic is the biggest challenge, and the quality of design defines the success of this project. This is why our leading role as finance head or FP&A head is crucial for managing the process and handling all the development process under control and steer ahead in the process into the right direction, as it may not appear as a one attempt successful solution. So all the time you need to adjust and develop and fine tune architecture for connecting diverse data into robust financial logic. The FP&A logic means that we can drill down P&L into operational drivers, or can roll up drivers into forecasted and budgeted P&L. I know still for many organizations it's a huge challenge, and I saw some solutions for planning, some nice reporting tools, but where is combination? It's absolutely not there, available in any software which I tested. So ultimately, comparing our financials with underlying logic is it's a huge benefit. So we can compare not only top line and bottom line parameters of our reports, but what if we can drill down and compare drivers, and that completely change the way how we work with data and planning tools. So one of the way was to hard code the business logic in the model and compare it with the real case scenarios, and it works. So after multiple times of try and error, we achieved an instantaneous generation of planning scenarios, and we are now able to pick up the best possible one. So having operational plans as flexible tools helped us a lot in this crisis. And when we don't have a clear future agenda, and we need quick adaptation and retargeting to changing environment.
Excellent. And just before we start a quick conversation with our other panelists, would you like to describe very quickly where you are right now? I remember how you demonstrated your process to me online. So push of the button, you really don't need people. People can use, people could spend their time on value-adding activity, definitely. Yeah.
Yes,
So
well, we just killed the routine mundane work. So we don't hire a lot of people for just connecting data on or some not intelligent work. So our people are really engaged in thinking process, making decision. And what we are doing is we're constantly improving the process, as it is a never-ending story. The FP&A process and planning process is adapting, and this is all the time is a journey for us. So we are improving and fine-tuning all the time, and we'll do it forever as our business will require that.
never-ending process. And obviously, we also know that how passionate you are about this field. Yeah, that you're constantly learning, you're constantly developing your people, you're constantly improving your process. Igor, congratulations, and thank you for sharing this great example of machine plus human intelligence plus process. Definitely, it's a great result. I would like to ask Anton to comment on this. So Anton, would you like to say a few words about this?
Yes, sure. So first of all, hello everyone. Really glad to be here, participating in this meeting. So to comment on what Igor said, what I wanted to comment on was actually the implications of this, transformation on the skill set and the profiles we hire for FP&A. So Larissa, you mentioned a few times that Igor is basically a finance person, but also a data scientist. I think that as we move on and as this digital transformation is happening in more and more companies, there is basically less and less difference between the two. So, for example, in our team in Amazon, there are more and more data scientists working as finance people, and I actually see this as something very important because these people still have completely different skill sets, and they can also help the other finance people to improve their skills in this area. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Anton. Sasha, would you like to add some additional points, your experience on this presentation?
Yes, absolutely. So I would like to point two things or mention two things that I really fully agree on and that popped into my mind. So the first thing is that let's say that planning from a financial perspective includes more and more from the operational world elements, and it grows together. That's something that I also see, and which is a trend that will continue in the future. And if you bring both worlds together, the financial and non-financial world, that's really powerful, and you can make really good predictions, and you can make a much better planning there. So I fully agree on that, and I can also confirm that's what I see. And the second thing is agility of the planning and the forecasting. I think speed is one of the elements which gets more and more important. So also here fully agree. And I think speed is getting even more crucial and important in the future than it is already today.
Excellent. Thank you for your commentary, Sasha. Thank you, everyone, for commentaries and for your presentation, Igor. Now it's a good timing to ask our audience to share some of the vision and some of the what is happening in your world. I'm launching the polling question, yeah, and we are really interested to know what is the best description for your current FP&A process. And please, can you start to vote? Please choose only one which is the best description for you. Is it static, not predictive at all? Or do you have some predictive elements, such as some of the drivers? Or is it fully driver-based model? Or maybe you're already digital and using the power of automation, predictive analytics, and artificial intelligence and machine learning? I can see that more than half of you already voted. Just a few seconds, and we're about to close the polls, but please continue to vote. Yeah, fantastic. I'm closing the poll and I'm sharing the results with everyone. So very interesting result. We can see that 22% of you are static, not predictive. So traditional management accounting, let's put it this way. But majority of you, 60%, have some predictive elements, and 13% already fully driver-based. And fantastic, it's so consistent around the globe that 5% already using automation, predictive, prescriptive, and artificial intelligence, machine learning. Igor, I would like to ask your commentary on this. So what is this? Any surprises for you?
No surprise, but really I'm happy that there are companies that's already having fully digital, even 5%. It's really interesting to learn, and fully driver-based models also. It's I think 13%. It's really amazing. And but the conclusion is that most of the companies have some predictive elements already embedded. So I think that's the way forward, and which other companies will follow.
Absolutely, yes. So please remember the power of machine, human intelligence, and the process. I'm hiding the results. Thank you for your commentary, Igor. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing your view on your process. And we are moving on. So our next presenter is Anton Malmygin. Who is joining us from Spain at the moment, but normally based in Luxembourg. Anton is head of FP&A, BI and cost out initiatives Europe at Amazon. And it would be the real life, the real practical case study from Amazon on using machine learning for revenue forecasting. Anton, please, if you can share with us your presentation. The stage is yours.
Thank you, Larissa. So hello, everyone, again. So what I'm going to talk about is a specific case study from my own experience on how we applied machine learning in FP&A. The reason I picked this specific example, was that while I think we all do a lot of automation in FP&A and in different processes, I personally, I've seen very few examples of actually machine learning being applied in FP&A to solve specific problems. So it is applied, obviously, in many different areas, of course, in Amazon, but I think also in other companies. But using this specifically in FP&A is something that I think we're still a bit behind on. If you can move to the next slide, Larissa. So first of all, before I go to the case study, I'd like to talk a little bit about when we would use machine learning versus simple statistical analysis. So to me, at least, whenever we have a situation where we have a lot of data, multiple variables that can impact a certain output, and we don't have any clear hypothesis on what variables could be more impactful, machine learning is a good tool to use. So one of the key problems in using machine learning is that, contrary to if you compare this to some of the statistical analysis, basically it is very difficult to explain the output of the model to the business partners. So these models are not very intuitive, and sometimes they also considered as being a bit of a black box. So again, maybe quickly sharing one of the examples I went through in my previous role. So I was working on online marketing, and I was the leader of the finance department supporting online marketing team. And we were trying to, so we were basically using a machine learning attribution model developed by data scientists in Amazon. Now, what happened is that data scientists basically upgraded the model. And as a result of this upgrade, we saw that some of the marketing channels like paid search became way less attractive. Now, the first question we got from the business team was, okay, why is it happening? And then we basically realized that we have no tools to explain. So we had to go back to the data scientist team and basically work with them to create some dashboards that can help the business people. So a couple of other examples of where we could use machine learning and where it is used in other business areas. So areas like demand forecast, for example. Again, very like many variables, multiple variables that can impact demand. So and obviously, we have an idea of some correlation and maybe which ones are more impactful, but it's still very difficult to understand all the variables that can have an impact. So in cases like this, machine learning is a very good tool to use. If you can move to the next slide, please. So going back to the specific case study I wanted to share. So a bit of background first, because you may not be familiar with the Amazon operating model. So Amazon works with a lot of vendors, and whenever we negotiate with a vendor, negotiations always end up in a vendor agreement. So the agreement is usually about the terms that we manage to negotiate. Now, what we saw specifically in my FP&A team is that we create a lot of these agreements. Then those agreements go through accounting and billing processes. And then later on, the agreements are disposed. Now, disposed means that they're canceled and replaced by a different agreement. There may be different reasons for that. Sometimes the agreement may be incorrect. Sometimes we manage to renegotiate a better agreement, etc., etc. Now, what it creates for the finance team and also for the business team is a lot of rework. So we counted just the FP&A team hours, and we got to more than 10,000 hours that of rework that these disposals were creating. Then it also creates a huge noise in the P&L and a lot of write-offs, things like accruals, reversal, etc. So the whole idea of what we try to do, basically, we were trying to detect some of these risky agreements prior they go to billing, so we can save all this time and effort for the FP&A people and for the business people, and also prevent this P&L noise. By the way, I didn't mention that, but this obviously these agreements are a major portion of our P&L, and the impact is counted in billions of dollars. If you can move to the next slide, please. So what we did is, as I mentioned earlier, so we didn't really have any good hypothesis on what could increase chances of certain agreement to be disposed. So we came up with some variables that we thought could be relevant. And you can see here a correlation matrix on the right. I'm not sure if you can actually see the numbers, but the conclusion when you look at this was basically that there is no strong correlation between any of them and the chances of disposal for the agreement. So this is why we decided to try and use a machine learning model. So we got an external model called XGBoost Classifier. So this is something which is available and everyone can use it. So my data scientist team basically looked at the model and adapted it a little bit to the specific use case. And once we trained it on the data that we had, and then applied it on the past agreements, we saw that the model was actually able to detect 26% of the agreements with relatively high probability of being precise. So obviously, you may say 26% is not a great result, but it still already saves a lot of time for the team and already can help to prevent a lot of these disposals. But I think the good thing about machine learning models is that they can be trained on more data. And once they're trained, we would expect this 26% to increase to around 50% and above. Okay, so you can move to the next slide. So to conclude on this, just a few points, and maybe to mention key takeaways. So first of all, with all these great tools, never forget how you drive actions and make those conclusions actionable. So in this specific case, we thought about different things, but some things that we implemented. So for example, automated emails to vendor managers for specifying very risky agreements. We also introduced some additional approval processes for risky agreements, etc. On the machine learning tools itself, I think all I really wanted to show you here is one example, but I think that the whole idea of this is to encourage you to use this in your areas of responsibility. You shouldn't be afraid to test. I mean, it doesn't cost money. I mean, it does take some effort, and you need to have the right profiles in your team to be able to test this. But beyond this, it's not a huge time and money investment. So I would encourage you to test those. And I do see this as we talk today. Maybe 10 years ago, we talked about things like SQL, Python. I'm not even sure if it existed. We talked about it as something which is very rare, and we just start implementing. So today, I think we talk the same way about machine learning, but I do see this becoming more and more common, and I do see this becoming pretty much a standard in FP&A in a few years from now.
Anton, thank you so much for sharing the experience. Obviously, this is one of those many examples that you currently use, and your high-tech company definitely is moving towards digital FP&A. We don't have enough time to go deeply into your case study. We hope that in the future we will involve more minutes of presentation and more people from your company as well to look at your particular case study. But can you give us a quick overview? So what is digital FP&A for you, and what is your vision, where you are now? Any other things for us to understand?
Yes. Sure. Thanks for the question. So I think that the model and the transformation that Igor was describing in his presentation is pretty much the reality we live in Amazon. So we try, I mean, most of the, I would say 99% of the reporting is automated. We are gradually trying to get to the point where all the planning process and forecasting is automated as well. So we're not yet there, but I'm sure we'll get there in a matter of, several months or maybe max, 1 year. And I think that what I really like about Amazon is that this culture of automation is really in our blood. And, whenever we have a new business challenge, like examples like this year, for example, we had COVID, right? And that created a lot of requirements for additional analysis, so additional reporting. So of course we spend time on doing all this, but then after a week or two, we basically got to the point where even those new analysis and reports are automated. And I think that helps a lot to save our team's time and to basically spend the time on more kind of value-adding tasks.
Thank you so much for your update on Amazon's FP&A digital story, Anton. What I want to say that for the third year, we in FP&A Trends, we do FP&A Trends survey. And for the third year, we have disappointing result for FP&A practitioners around the globe that only 25% of their time is spent on value-adding activities, such as supporting the decision-making process, sharing the insights, telling the stories, doing business partnering, and all of this. Obviously, the story from you and from Igor, from your companies, this is such an encouraging story for people to go and to continue to automate and go digital. Thank you for this. I would like to ask Saurabh from Siemens to share his key takeaways from this session.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Larissa. So Anton's presentation does bring some very interesting things. What I pick from here is his vulnerability to the entire process. And that's one fact, that it's not a magic wand. AI, machine learning, is a continuous process of learning, and machine learns from humans, and humans also in turn need to learn how machines work and operate. So I would say that is a continuous process that we need to remain aware of and acknowledge in our development process.
Thank you so much, Saurabh. Igor, would you like to comment on this presentation, on this particular case study, please?
Yes, I really enjoyed the story of Anton, and I see it's also kind of example how we apply and embed machine learning advantages in the daily business operations, and we extract the benefits in areas where before we failed. So the standard approaches did not work, and we turned to machine learning tools to help us better sort out the mess or highly complex problems. And this is a combination where humans with machines are perfectly match each other. And I think that this is a trend for future, which other companies would follow. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much, Igor. And Sasha, I would like you to comment on this as well, if you can.
Yeah, sure. So what I really liked about the presentation here is about the topic of demystifying the results of machine learning and the aspect or element of being a black box. And I think this is one, in the starting point, one of the essential things that needs to be considered. People, especially if you're new to the AI world or you work newly with the system, you need to build up trust, and the better you can demystify and explain how it works, the easier it gets to build up the trust on the results of the system. So I think this is really one of the very important starting points to get the whole process started.
Thank you so much, Sasha. Thank you, everyone. And now, again, we would like to hear from you. The time for the next polling question, and I'm about to launch it. It's about, please, can you describe what is your current process of using artificial intelligence, machine learning for finance and FP&A, especially for FP&A? Yeah. So to what extent would you say your organization uses artificial intelligence, machine learning, and FP&A? And select one of those. No artificial intelligence, machine learning being used. We plan to use in the near future. Some of artificial intelligence, machine learning used. And yes, artificial intelligence, machine learning is being used very actively, very productively. So please continue to vote. More than 50% of you already voted. We have a few seconds before I close the poll and before I share this with everyone. Very interesting, so please continue to vote. And I'm closing the poll right now, and I'm sharing the results with everyone. Interesting results. As you can see, almost half of you don't use FP&A, machine learning, artificial intelligence, and FP&A yet. But you plan, 36% of you plan to use this in the near future. So much consistent with our global survey as well. 14% of you already use some artificial intelligence, machine learning in finance, but none of you actually being used this in finance as a part of digital process. Yeah. So I really would like to ask Anton to comment on this. So what would you say?
It's actually, I have to say, it's a positive surprise for me. I think I didn't expect this 50%, almost 50% to, at least plan and already use some of this in finance, but it's great to see. So
no,
I personally didn't have.
Can I interrupt? No artificial intelligence, machine learning being used. 50% don't use. Only 14% use some element. Yeah?
Yeah, it is true, but it also says that 36 are already planning to use some, right? So to my, yeah, so I added up these two, but I think it's a positive surprise for me again, and great to see that so many people either intend already using some of this.
You're absolutely right. You see, I'm like a classical pessimist, you're a classical optimist. So I looked at 49 that don't use, but you look at those that already plan and use. So 50-50, we can say, yeah. Great, we definitely will see this, those figures are changing. So Rob, what would be your commentary? Any surprises here?
So no surprises. In fact, what confirms my belief is that there is no AI, ML automation or CD running our FP&A departments, which I'm really thankful about, that people are not going to Siri and asking them about all solutions. But as Anton pointed out, that there is a deep desire to move towards machine learning and hyper automation. That's quite encouraging. But at the same time, half the world is not there yet. So there's a great scope to improve.
Absolutely, a lot of potential for FP&A, definitely. Thank you so much, Saurabh. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for all of you for sharing your results with us, for all our participants, to all our participants. And I'm hiding the results, and we are moving on. So now the presentation from another visionary and finance practitioner who is working in between of different fields, and definitely so much excited and interested in what artificial intelligence, machine learning can bring to our finance professional. Saurabh Jain, VP of Business Performance and Controlling at Siemens Healthcare.
Healthineers, yes. Yeah, it's a tongue twister. Yeah, so thanks, Larissa. Good afternoon, good evening to practitioners, colleagues all over the globe. So I would say not a visionary, but a curious, intrigued student, because there's so much to learn and develop. But I would like to share some of my observations, some of my experiences, and things that I have learned over this process. So what intrigues me about this is are two things. One is how AI and ML is a subset of data science, and then how it is increasingly becoming a part of overall digital transformation. As you can see from presentations and the polls, as to we are perfectly in the midway in terms of where we are and where we intend to be. Uh, and this in this diagram, you would see how this thing has evolved, or how multiple stages could there be from a trigger-based data automation center to a gradual improvement on upgrading from robotics, cognitive computing, which is a partial element of AI, ML. You set up certain rules, machine learns, and then to completely a dynamic language, self-learning, very ambitious stage that it could be. And most of us have come across certain elements of automation, from base level intelligent automations to hyper automations that are evolving in different industries. Just to example, smart workforce, Internet of Things, blockchain and its applications, to a more 4D printing and ambitious outlook on autonomous vehicles, augmented reality, and in fact, even people have started talking about quantum computing. And as I would say, and I think I mentioned earlier as well in my comment, that there is a lot of ground to be covered before we as a FP&A community, as a finance community, can have a fully automated system. And there are multiple steps before we can even get to a point where we can fully leverage the capacities and capabilities machines have to offer. Larissa, if you could just move on to the next slide, please. So to emphasize my personal digital transformation journey and learning points thereof, of how I have seen from hours and hours of compilation of spreadsheet based or web portal based informations, to how in baby steps certain elements of robots, elements of machine learning, elements of visualization and smart data toolbox, etc. there. So as a very typical case here, you have multiple sources of transaction processing systems, ERPs or data warehouses. But now there is an element of non-systematic, standardized information coming from macro indicators, CRM, competition in our industry, particularly around disease states, healthcare expenditure, and then increasingly depending on patient utilization generated from information systems, which are triggering user-based statistics, not financial statistics, but non-financial user-based statistics, which can go into deepest of data points in terms of customer preferences, their disease states, their outcomes, the components used, component or the outputs, etc. How this comes across now, that various data lakes which are combining raw data, filtering it through different parameters, and providing multiple semantic layers where people can use the small controlled and governed elements of data lakes for their smart utilizations, where you have power apps, or you have visualization, or have multiple further utilization. So I would like to emphasize on three use cases very, very briefly. One is how machine learning could use over 5,000 to, in fact, we kind of truncated it down to less, elements that could impact the revenue forecast, and how internally statistics is generated to identify key drivers which are there influencing the forecast. The other example is how historical, what we call supervised learning outcomes, determine how the future patient behaviors would be. And this is very dynamic, particularly in the COVID-19 situation, where disease states, preferences, treatments, patients' um, uh, outcomes are very different from what has historically been there. So this helps to drive the rev rec within the IFRS feeder that we use for SAP. And then finally, another example is how these semantic layers are coupled up with digital workers and process minds. So these process minds and the digital workers now are able to do a detailed analysis of the end-to-end process of order to cash and identifying where inventory in terms of time and value stacks up at the minutest level of process journey, and where there are gaps and where we could fix it, one, or use it for predictive basis to identify the real impact on cash. So very essential utilization for cash flow prediction in the OTC functionality. So these were like a couple of cases where machine and advanced robotics are already in utilization, and with this data layer being available, there is only a possibility to enhance the utilization of machines and automate our workflows. 3 or 4 things that I would want to summarize as the learning points or drivers from this one is there are essentially that where we started 8 to 10 years ago, time on data collection and essentially ensuring the integrity of information is reducing. Time also to run queries and map it is reducing, and increasingly time is being spent on data governance, analysis, and activity-based implementation. So measures to address and measures to follow are beginning to be more critical than assimilating information and consolidating it before it could be used. The second thing is that I think Anton mentioned about the black box. The black box element is also magnified when FP&A professionals lack business understanding and they run based on internal information parameters only. So FP&A professionals would have to evolve and understand business better. So it is, and I think I mentioned about the vulnerability of the system, is that you need to bring in the actual business happening at the grassroots so that a better understanding of drivers and influences to all these mega data that is available is extremely essential. So in short, data management, process governance, and workflow utilization are constantly evolving, and our professionals will have to sit on top of this ever evolving chain to remain successful. Larissa, with that, my final slide, please. Yes, thank you. And what it means for our community going forward. And my observations or learnings are, it's going to be all about business partnering. You go with drivers who will be constantly changing, and the drivers will have to be brought back to the analysis, forecast, business plans, etc. So the role is now going to be a business partner and storyteller. Second thing is, data scientists are integral part of a community. They provide us with a dimension that is currently or was previously missing from the team's skill sets. As a matter of caution, repetitive tasks, if have not eliminated, will eliminate even in an accelerated fashion. The cost of digitalizing now with cloud-based SaaS applications is so less that in future we would see more and more processes getting automated, lesser amount spent on spreadsheets, consolidations, more around analyzing workflows, analyzing the data, less on reporting, but identifying drivers. And finally, the most successful FP&A professionals would be the ones who have excelled on soft skills, who are able to influence the business and add value. So those are probably, there are many more, but the most important and relevant parameters or indicators of skill changes in the next times to come. So with that, Larissa, I think thank you very much. That would be it from my side.
Thank you so much, Saurabh. Excellent insights. Thank you for sharing your experience. I wanted to say that both Igor and Saurabh they are members of our Artificial Intelligence Machine Learning Committee, where we look at particular case studies that relate on using artificial intelligence machine learning for FP&A. And thank you for sharing these insights. We are on this journey, definitely. I would like to ask you, Anton to comment on this. So Anton, what would be your commentary on Saurabh's presentation?
So first of all, I couldn't agree more with what's written in these points 1 to 4 on that slide. So I think I can fully relate to that. Maybe what is interesting for me a little bit is this point 3 on the repetitive tasks, which are being automated constantly. I think that the definition of repetitive task is changing and evolving as well. And I think that one of part of our job is basically to keep raising the bar on what repetitive task is. So for example, if 5-10 years ago, repetitive task would be creating a report, I think that we need to keep challenging ourselves and move more and more into, not make more, not create more repetitive tasks, but more like automate more and more routine tasks. So, example is, for example, forecasting or building a financial plan, for me, it could be considered a repetitive task, okay? It can be fully automated. Some of the complex analysis that we help the business with, again, we need to keep challenging ourselves and use artificial intelligence and machine learning to try and automate those as well.
Thank you so much, Anton. A really relevant commentary and great reminder. I would like to ask Sasha to comment on this as well.
Yes, sure. So for point 1 and 2 is something that jumps into my eyes, and there are 2 elements that I can also fully agree on, which are essential and which are pointed out very well in this presentation. So the first topic is data. Data is the fuel for AI and machine learning, and is important and will get more important in the future, or at least stay as important as it is. And also the change of the role of FP&A and finance in the future from, let's say, the bookkeeper only to much more business partnering, and the need to understand the data. So what's the situation of the organization? What does the data mean? And then do the right things with it. So I couldn't agree more here, and I fully, as I said, agree on this change of the role. That's also what I'm seeing.
Thank you so much, Sasha. I also would like to ask Igor to give his key takeaways from Saurabh's session as well.
From my takeaways, business partnering is a key and to successful role of FP&A managing this huge landscape of data tools, and this is exactly what is required from FP&A role, is to manage all this variety of technology and pick up the messages, the correct messages for partners in business, and to inform them timely on the outcomes of all this complexity of data and financial outcomes. And this is a role which has been always important before, but will be more important in future, as we are not dealing only with 1, 2, 3 tools. We will have to digest maybe tens not hundreds, but a lot of tools, and how we can make storytelling will define the success of all this work, hard work done. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Igor. Thank you so much, Saurabh, for sharing your result with us. I just would like to remind everyone the conclusions of our previous session, London FP&A Circle, where we looked at 5 FP&A roles, and 2 of them are emerging, such as FP&A data scientist and FP&A architect. And I think those presentations, they are such a proof that despite that some of the jobs will be lost, the new jobs would be created at this area. We really would like to hear from you now, and this is the time for the next polling question number 3. I'm launching this polling question, and please can you start to vote as soon as you see it. It's very easy to do with this system. So what do you believe are the biggest challenges on the FP&A analytical journey? But please, can you choose only one, which is the most important for you? All of them are challenges, but what is the biggest challenge from your experience? Is it talent and skill set gap? Is it the culture that doesn't allow for analytical transformation? Is it lack of technology, or is it the problem with data? So please, if you can start voting. I can see that actually more than 60% of you already voted. Just a few seconds, and I'm about to close the poll. I'm closing the poll right now, and I'm sharing the results with everyone. So those are the results. 47% say that talent and skill set, it's a problem. It's exactly about the creation of new jobs, new roles. Culture is 21%, the lack of technology 13%, and the quality of data is 20%. Saurabh, what would be your key takeaways on this polling question?
Yes, so Larissa, can you hear me? Yeah, I was
yes,
muted, but I mean, not a surprise again, as I would say. We've seen the transformation nature of our talent pool, what we need, and it is. I mean, I don't know what is driving the other, but it's the culture which inhibits the talent acquisition. It's a talent which is not helping with the culture, but collectively, those are really our chief inhibitors. I'm happy to see that technology and data are not the main culprits anymore, because if you remember 4 or 5 years ago, if you went around doing this, everybody would blame it on data. Oh, data is not good, or we can't depend on the information. So I think we are in the right direction, and our colleagues are picking up the right pain points here.
Excellent, thank you so much. And Sasha, what would be your comment on this?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting, the result. To my knowledge, I would have bet that data is way higher rated than talent and the skill set, or answered more. So that's really an interesting part. I think all 4 are challenges, so I can understand that, of course. I think that we will see in the future, especially with evolving technology, which let's say also helps that the talent and skill set. Of course, you need a special talent and skill set, but I think technology will help to reduce the intensity of how much of talent and skill you need to have in different areas outside of finance, so to say, more in the data science area. So I think there will be a shift in the future on that, but very interesting results and a little bit surprising for me, to be honest. So I would have said what I see mostly is that organizations do not have the, let's say, high quality data available in a format that they can process it. But then, of course, the second step when you have it is how to work with it. So very interesting result.
I agree with you. Thank you so much, Sasha. Thank you so much to all our participants for sharing their views on the biggest challenges. I'm hiding the results, and we are moving on. So we discussed that artificial intelligence is important, that process is important, and human intelligence is important, and combination of all of those three. And we looked at the skills and what will be the FP&A of the future, and we identified that there is a gap between the talent and skills that are available at the marketplace. But now let us look at the technology, digital FP&A, looking into the future from the technology visionary point of view, because definitely technology will bring this gap at least between data science and analytics and finance people. It will make it user friendly. Yeah. So Sasha Alba, who is product director and head of FP&A at Unit 4, is going to share with us his vision, looking into the future of digital FP&A from technology point of view. You're welcome, Sasha.
Thanks, Larissa. So before I start, I make a promise to you. So in a few minutes, you will know something about me that not many people know. And secondly, you will understand, based on some use cases, what the power of AI is today, but also in the future, where it can go into. So with that said, what you can see on the next slide is, and that's how I want to start. It was around 1 year ago, and on the left side, you can see an automated passport control. I went on a business trip. I'm located in Munich and went on a business trip to the UK. So what I did is I went to the automated passport control, put in my passport there, scanned it, went into this room. There was made a picture of me, and it opened up and says, "Have a nice day." So I could go through, had a good business trip, and a few days later, I returned to Munich in the airport, and then there was a long queue on the automated passport control. And I thought I'm clever and smart, and I just went to the personal passport control where a person is sitting and is checking your passport, because there was no queue. So I went there, I handed the person over my passport, and he opened it and looked into it and looked at me, and it took around 20 or 30 seconds. And he didn't say something, he just looked into the passport and at me. And believe me, it really feels like eternity if someone is doing that for 20 or 30 seconds. But then he handed over the passport to me and said, "Okay, fine, have a nice day." Now, I need to add one thing here to the story. The picture in my passport is without beard. So the person really needed some time to understand if I'm the person on the picture or not. And what you can see on the next slide, this little example here explains pretty well how AI and technology really works already today in our real life. So you feed the system with data and information, for example, many pictures, different gestures with glasses, with beard, without beard, from the same person. And you can use large data sets. So it's very powerful, the AI, that it can learn based on inputs. And then you can deliver pretty good results. And for example, the system is capable to understand if I'm the person on the picture or not. And on the other hand side, with technology like the scanner and making a picture of me, it's really possible to go through such an automated passport control in a few seconds, instead of, let's say, half a minute or a minute that a person needs to check if I'm the person on my on the picture that he sees in the passport. And that's one example to illustrate a little bit how AI is already available in our today's life. And on the next slide, I will go more into the FP&A part, because I think that's the reason also why we're here. Before I start with a concrete use case and example that I have seen where we leverage AI in FP&A, first, one question I want to ask you, or I want that you ask yourself, what is the biggest pain point you have today in your business, in your daily life? I assume that most of you now think about, oh, I don't have enough time. I have a lot of repetitive tasks, a lot of things that are, let's say, not really value generating, but I need to do them. And even if it's checking a deviation between budget and actual, it costs me only a few minutes. But at the end of the day, it's a high number of times that it happens. So I still spend a lot of time on it. And I want to spend my time on the decision-making, support decision-making, and most valuable tasks I have. And this is where AI comes into place. With automation, you can really do a lot of stuff to free up your time. So to give you one concrete example, what I've seen in a project is where a company wants to predict the personal cost and the personal hours that you need, for example, for gas stations. So you want to predict how many people do you need in the next week per day and how many hours. And it depends on different influence factors. It can be if it's at a highway or if it's located somewhere else. How is the gas price or the oil price? How is the weather? Is it a weekday? Is it a holiday? There are many, many different influence factors. And the system learns based on information that you feed the system. So you need to have this data. And then you can train the system. The system will understand patterns and understand the situation. And then you're able to predict the future based on assumptions about the future that you made. So for example, when you predict for the next week the required personal cost, you know if it's a weekday or if it's a public holiday or whatever. So you can make the assumption and the system will give you a good result. Now, what I learned and what my experience here is that the role of data is essential, and we heard that before in the other presentations as well. I think data is really key and is a key element. What I learned personally is data quality is key. I think that most of you will already heard that, but also a little bit surprising was for me that the more data is not always the better. What is important about data is that, and that is included in data quality, that it really reflects the situation that you have. So for example, if a gas station and you have actuals about the personal cost and people you had in the gas station 2 years ago, but then there was a road extension, maybe this data is really not helping you further. So this is something that we learned in the projects. More is not always better. And then the value of the forecasts in this example, that's also very interesting. In the beginning, I thought a couple of years ago, it's all about accuracy. It's all about getting a higher percentage of what will be in the future. And what I learned in the last, I would say 12 to 18 months is that the balance, you need to have a good accuracy or an acceptable accuracy, but it's even this agility, and especially with the situation we have today with COVID, where we see it's an agile environment and we need to be able to react quickly. I do see the speed as taking a more and more important role. So you need to find a balance between accuracy and speed, but speed is really something, especially when you see the trend from budgeting to forecasting and do that instead of, let's say, once a month, every day, a few times. This is really essential. And I saw some projects where we could reduce the time for creating a forecast from several months to a few minutes. So I think this is very powerful. And on the next slide, we can see that this is only the tip of the iceberg. How I see in the future the support of AI, it's getting more and more an integrated part of technology and of software. And it will help us also, as we have seen that in the polling question before, that I don't expect that you need to be a fully PhD data scientist to spend several months in understanding all the data. What the role change of FP&A is definitely there, and you will have to understand the data, and you need to have to understand the situation, what the data describes. But technology with the integrated part of, let's say, AI and machine learning capabilities will help you that even without being an expert in all data scientist areas, will help you, for example, to identify what are your real value drivers, your key business drivers. So it will tell you if the oil price is really something that has a huge impact on how many people you need in the gas station, or maybe it does not. And the cool thing with AI is it's not a one-time thing that you just have and then you start and you need to adjust it manually. It learns over time and it adapts, which helps you to speed up. And also in our agile times, it's also very good to have the system support continuously. The second thing, what I see also with the technology emerging with, let's say, some best practices, is that you don't make only a forecast, but you automate and save time even on a more in planning. So you do that on a higher level and more intensity. What I mean with that is, so think about how cool would it be if you have a solution that tells you this is the key business drivers you have, and they change like this and this over time. And then the system will tell you the best planning based on many, many learnings from other organizations would be that you do your planning and your forecast maybe on, let's say, gas station level, or maybe you make a cluster of gas stations. And maybe if you think of a PSO organization, professional services, you maybe not do that on one project, but on a project group level. So the planning part will be automated in the future more and more, in my opinion. And I think that's also the power where we can automate and save a lot of time also in the future based on the best practices we have, and the system will learn from. And also here you will see, of course, that the data that we get now and where we start to get now is the fuel and will help us to achieve this, let's say, vision. So my take-home message for you is, first of all, I believe that AI, we are still at the tip of the iceberg. The way of automation to save time and being accurate has just started. So we have lots of potentials here. Technology will be integrating this more and more in a natural and very user-friendly way that it can be used very easily. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, when you use or when you travel and you go to a personal passport control, make sure that your picture is not outdated.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Sasha. Thank you for sharing your thought leadership with us and insights. I would like to ask Anton to comment on this. Anton, what would be your key points to add to Sasha's presentation?
Yeah, I'd like to comment on what was shown on one of the previous slides about like automating the forecast process and letting the machine learn basically on historical actuals and trends. I actually think, I've seen a couple of very good examples of how this is working, because what's happening is that usually people have a lot of concerns and they say, okay, how can you let machine to do this? So, how can you let machine to forecast? It's not going to be accurate. So, a great example I had from my experiences, we have a team doing demand forecasts in Amazon globally. And obviously, this team is using machine learning and all these very, sophisticated tools. And they come up with a forecast, and then based on this, we have a certain process based on which business teams can come and make some overrides. So we actually we wanted to test and to see like which one of the forecasts is more accurate, and guess what was the result. So in all the cases, the first forecast that was created by machine was actually more accurate, and then all these manual interventions on top only made things worse. So I think that kind of just makes the point again on how how reliable these machines are and how much time it can also save for all of us.
Thank you so much, Anton, for your commentary. Thank you so much, Sasha, for your presentation. And now this is the time for the next polling question, the last one. We would like to hear from you. I'm about to open the polling question. And please, if you can start voting as soon as you see it, I'm launching the poll. And please, can you share with us what is the best description for you? What is the key factor for further advance in digital journey in finance and FP&A? Select the one that is most important for you. Is it the technology? Is it the leadership support? Is it skills and competencies in finance FP&A? Or is it business partners buy-in? So please, if you can continue to vote, almost 50% of you voted. Please continue to do this. And I'm about to close the polling question. So I'm closing it now, and I'm sharing the results with everyone. Sasha, you can see the results. Can you comment on this? So technology, it's only 14%. The majority people think that it's leadership support. It's one of the biggest it's the key factor, and of course skills and competencies very much in line with our previous polling question, but of course business partner support, it's important as well. So what would be your commentary on this, Sasha?
Yeah, this is, to be honest, not a surprise for me. I think I would have also voted on the leadership support, because that's the starting point. You need to walk the talk, and if you have the support and you really want to, let's say, go the digital journey in finance and FP&A, you need to have leadership support. You need to mean it serious, and you need to walk the talk, as said. So I think this is really the starting point and essential to start with, and all other things can be solved. But if you don't want to really do it as an organization, it will not succeed. And my advice would be, what I've seen, what is working really well is start simple and then extend. Do not do too much in the beginning. Start with some small, easy examples with leadership support, and if they work fine, then continue to expand also this the usage, for example, of AI and machine learning in different areas or in more use cases. So I fully agree with that, and I think that's a good starting point if you have the leadership support.
Thank you so much, Sasha, for your commentaries, and thank you to all our participants for your voting. I'm hiding the results, and we're coming to the final part of our session today. And please remember that you can text questions to our panelists, and even if we don't have enough time to answer, there are a lot of questions at the moment. We are committed to do this in offline regime. We will answer in writing to those that we didn't manage to tackle today, and we will send those answers to you. So, conclusions from our today's session. Obviously, 90 minutes, it's not enough to go into more details into this amazing, interesting subject of digital FP&A. But the main conclusion is that the transformation is happening. And it's not about the view that machines are going to kill our jobs. They are going to transform our job. And the formula of success, it's about human intelligence working together with artificial intelligence. And of course, it's about clever process. And today we had demonstration of this formula. And also we understand that the roles in our profession will be changing, moving away from our traditional accounting function and towards more as data science and architecture and understanding the analytics, and of course, performing advanced analytics to support decision making. So now this is a Q&A session, and I will start to ask questions. Q&A session is open. Please continue to send questions to us. And I have the first question. There are so many of them at the moment. Igor, the first question is to you. Igor,
Yes.
how did
yes.
you, Igor, did you have a strong IT internal support? How much did you spend in consultancy to implement the system solution?
Great question. In the beginning, I did not have IT expertise, so I had to make some hard learning by myself and later developed some certain skills. But for building the good model, actually, it was not crucial. So my first project was without IT support, and the second project, which I implemented in Russia, was the role of kind of managerial support. So I managed IT, in which direction to build models and to develop. So as soon as we learn the way how we do it, we just need to direct IT guys to follow us. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your answer, Igor. Anton, the next question is to you. How much upfront investment has to be made to develop a sufficient machine learning model and process before the business will start to realize any return on this? And how did you manage to build the historical data lake that are now used to train the machine? How far back have you gone at start? So quite an extended question for you.
So several questions in one question. Okay, so first of all, on the point on how much time it took, so I think this really depends on the complexity of what you're trying to build and the complexity of the question you're trying to solve. So the specific example I've given here, actually, it was very little time because the model is an external model. So we just had to kind of spend some time to look at the model, understand it, and adapt it to the specific problem. But there are much more complex problems. So these other examples I was given, or about demand forecast, for example, to build a machine learning model that forecasts demand for for Amazon globally, I mean that it takes months or probably years, right? I mean, and then so I think it all depends on the complexity of what you're trying to do.
Thank you so much, Anton.
Yeah.
So is it all, or you would like to?
No, yeah.
You answered.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's great. Thank you. The next one is a question to Saurabh. Saurabh, thank you for identifying the complete complexity of business, economic, and accounting drivers and variables. For the very relevant 3 use cases, how long to do actual program development for each to pull in thousands of drivers and variables? So So what would be your answer to this?
So there are two ways to look at it. I mean, for an organization as big as Siemens, it is a major technological drive, which does take, I think, I've been involved in this for over 2 years, and it has had special teams, departments, insights, external vendors. But what I'm saying, the second aspect is that most of these things do not need that level of investment. They can be done at a smaller level as well. So just as an example, a lot of machine learning applications and use cases, libraries, and archives are available that with much lesser investment of time and effort could be applied. So for us, it did take phenomenal amount of time, but that cannot be a general benchmark as a standard for everyone. You have to drive your own case.
Thank you so much, Saurabh. Excellent answer. And the next question is to you, Sasha. Sasha, most of the examples at this particular session came from large organizations. But do you see any benefits for small companies and medium-sized companies taking advantage of artificial intelligence, machine learning in FP&A, in forward-looking finance, supporting the decision-making?
Yeah, good question. And I'm happy to be honest that nobody asked for that I show the picture in my passport without beard. So thanks a lot for that. So this is a good question. And I think there is a huge, it doesn't matter what size of the company you have. I think the benefit can be achieved for each organization of each size. I think the key part is, and that's where I see a huge progress in the last, especially in the last, let's say, 1 to 2 years, and there will be more. And that's also especially for mid-sized companies and small companies even more important. You don't have a large team of data scientists. You're not be able to create a large project to introduce the AI or the even more technology usage in planning. So what I see as my vision and also my personal passion is to provide solutions which are very usable, and you don't need to be intensively in one of the areas to really leverage the power of technology. So to answer that question shortly is, I do see the possibility to really leverage technology with solutions with technology as inbuilt and easy to use in a usable way to consume the solution. If that's the case, also mid-size and small companies can easily adjust the usage of sophisticated technology within their FP&A and finance part. So I would say there's absolutely, I have several examples also seen where it's possible, and there are really huge savings and improvements you can make. So answer is absolutely yes.
Thank you so much, Sasha. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to our panelists for answering the questions. With this, I would like to conclude our Q&A session. There are more questions, but as I said, you still can continue to text them, and we will distribute them between our panelists, and we will get back to you with the answers. And now, I really would like to conclude our session, a very interesting discussion from finance leaders, from visionaries, from those people that understand the importance of digital transformation for FP&A and the importance of architecture and the importance of good process for this. Let us continue to do this, and we will continue to share with you the case studies from around the globe. And before we say goodbye today, I would like to say thank you so much to our partners and sponsors. Thanks a lot, Unit 4, for supporting this meeting. Thanks a lot to Michael Page for supporting us. And of course, I would like to say thank you so much to our incredible, very interesting and very international panel. Thank you, Igor. Thank you, Anton. Thank you, Saurabh. And thank you, Sasha. And finally, I would like to say Thank you so much to all of you. Let us stay connected. Let me know if you have any interesting FP&A related case studies. FP&A Trends Group is here to make the conclusions, to look at the best practices. Let us continue to connect with each other. And before we conclude this session, please remember that when we close this webinar, you will be able to complete the survey. I really would like to ask you to do this because it will give us an opportunity to think how we can improve it. Thank you, everyone, and I see you very, very soon. Bye-bye.